Gang, Evil Dead Chick here, reminding you to visit the Deadites on Deck Horror Shop for t-shirts, blended teas, candles, tote bags, hats, mouse pads, and more. Poe tells me that some of you aren't horror fans. That's okay. I do custom work. Just let me know what you need using the handy dandy form on the homepage of the shop at deaditesanddeck.com. I can even get you set up with t-shirt graphics and logos for your business, and we'll offer a discount if you want the logos put on multiple items. And best of all, shipping is a flat rate of $6, whether you buy one item or 10. Visit deaditesanddeck.com today.
Take you back. Let's rewind that old horror film. What's that in the background? Something is out of place. Someone shouldn't be there. That line is odd. That reflection is misplaced. Let's have fun finding all the mistakes in our favorite horror films. Let me take you back. Let's rewind that old horror film.
Hey guys, it doesn't look like anybody's in here right now, which might be a good thing because I can't find my dog outside, little Darcy. So I'm going to have to take myself out of the stream. I hope to be right back. I've got to go find her. I hope that she hasn't gotten loose or something like that. She usually comes to me, especially when I've got treats. So I'm a little worried. So bear with me, folks. I will be back as soon as I can. Okay, sorry about that to anybody that popped in here and didn't see me in here. I did find Darcy. Um, she finally decided to come to me. I was scared to death that she had gotten out of the fence or something. Um, so, anyway, here in a little bit, we're going to be getting to the goofs and trivia because that's what we do on Horror Movie Rewind for Friday the 13th from 1980. Yes, the original Friday the 13th. But before I get to that, I'd like to get some housekeeping stuff out of the way, as I usually do on these streams. Um, I do have a QR code in the upper left hand corner of the screen. What is that QR code for, you might ask? That is a QR code that will take you pretty much directly to my deaditesondeck.com horror shop at deaditesondeck.com, but you don't even have to do any typing. All you got to do is take your phone, and I figure most everybody has a cell phone nowadays. Just scan it with your favorite QR app of choice, or a lot of times you can do it with your camera, and it will bring up the URL for my horror shop. And then you just tap on that URL and you're good to go. I figure this works just as well as a clickable link for people. In fact, it's probably a little bit easier. Just scan and go. And so we've still got some programming coming up on Deadites on Deck. Tomorrow night, hopefully, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, there's going to be another They're All Messed Up, and I will be talking about the severed arm and the single girls, and the kills in each one of those, because that's what we do on They're All Messed Up. This Friday is the first Friday of the month. And you know what that means? That's Evil Dead Chicks Slasher Fest. And hopefully a lot of us will be watching Night of the Demons and Happy Hell Night together. I'm going to try to get some links for those movies for you guys and gals that don't own the movie, but you want to watch along. Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And by the way, the Evil Dead Chicks Slasher Fest will be starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time as well. There's a Videodrome watch along scheduled for Saturday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This was picked by poll by you guys, basically. There's another poll up now, and the choices are Halloween 4, Halloween 5, and Halloween H2O. Halloween 4 is still in the lead, folks. October the 10th, we will be having another Evil Dead Chicks Slumber Party. This is Evil Dead Chicks Hideous Halloween Slumber Party. And we're going to be watching not one, not two, but 3 movies from the Halloween franchise. And that's why we're starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Time instead of the normal 7 o'clock. We'll be watching, hopefully together, Halloween 1978, Halloween 2, and yeah, you guessed it, Halloween 3, with the irresistible Tom Atkins fighting against a madman who wants to have these masks that cause kids' heads to implode, and all kinds of creepy crawlies come out, spiders and snakes and roaches and whatnot, and attack their parents. Okay. Hey, Gory Tiger. So we got a lot of stuff coming up. We've got a movie Munchies coming up on October the 26th. It will be a video, but expect it to drop at some point on October the 26th, which is a Sunday. It's the last Sunday before Halloween. And I will be making Ozzy's October burrito in honor of Ozzy Osbourne and his love of burritos. And I just lost people whenever I said that. Like I said, I don't know if this is just a StreamYard or a YouTube thing or what, but sometimes it looks like nobody's in here and there are people actually in here because people will tell me, I'm here, I'm here. Okay, but before I get to this movie and the goofs and trivia, all the goofs and trivia I could dig up, I wanted to let you guys and guys and gals, know that even though I appreciate the super chats, the super stickers, people that join the Patreon. And I forgot, one person has joined my Patreon, Victor. He joined the Patreon. I didn't want to leave him out, right? Even though I enjoy all those things and appreciate it a lot, I know that, especially in this day and age, not everybody is made out of money. So there are other ways that you can support me and the channel, and it won't cost you a dime. One of the ways is by subscribing. If you haven't subscribed and you're enjoying the content that I'm putting out, please subscribe. And I'll tell you, right now is the fantastic time to subscribe, because you can enter my Halloween giveaway, where I'm giving out 3 Halloween movie or horror movie prize packs just in time for, well, just after Halloween. I'll be actually drawing the names out. But here's how you enter. From now until October 31st, Halloween, at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, if you subscribe and make sure that your subscription is not hidden, and you go to the video where I announce the giveaway, and I'll put the link to the video so y'all don't have to do too much legwork. If you go to that video and make sure that you comment and put your channel handle or your screen name that you subscribed under, make sure, because I know people have multiple channels and multiple screen names and all that good stuff. Okay. And then if I have any takers on this, I haven't so far, but if I have any takers on this, and remember, I've got 3 5-movie prize packs to give away. They're all Blu-rays. They have been watched, but they play beautifully. And nothing says that you got to keep all of them. Like if you like 2 of them really well and not so keen on the other 3, hey, trade them in for something that you do want. Take them to the pawn shop or something. I just got to make room on my shelves, and so I thought, well, I don't know, for a contest, okay. And if nobody takes me up on that offer, I'll wait a little bit, and then I'll do some kind of trivia contest or something like that and see if people are interested in it then. And in fact, I'll show y'all the movies again, because I decided to show the movies because I thought maybe that might encourage people. People have been subscribing, but they haven't been wanting to enter the giveaway. And I'm like, are the movies that bad that I'm offering? But the first prize pack has Night of the Creeps, Night of the Demons, A Nightmare on Elm Street, Picnic at Hanging Rock. This is the Criterion version, and Sorority House Massacre. The second prize pack has Halloween 2, Halloween 4. Has a lot of Halloween movies. Halloween 5, Demons 2, and the Toolbox Murders. I'm going to show that real fast because I don't want to get in trouble with YouTube. And the third prize pack has Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker, the 1970s Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Mother's Day, Play Misty for Me. And if you get this prize pack, it is 1 disc, but it's got 2 movies on it. You get When a Stranger Calls and Happy Birthday to Me, with that awful artwork. But, the movie's still great, in my opinion. Okay. But I thought, I would show those again, in case there were some of you watching or that watched this on the replay that hadn't seen the movies. Maybe that was what was, keeping people from, not entering, because they were like, heck, I don't even know what the movies are. I don't know if I want to enter or not. All right. So, what's another way you can support me in the channel and help me get up into the algorithms of YouTube, and also help me get to my next milestone that I've set for myself of 1,000 subscribers? Getting pretty daggone close, folks. If I don't lose any tonight, it seems like every time I mention it, it's like people want to humble me and they go away, or it's YouTube messing around with me. I don't know which. But you can hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the content that I've got coming out. You can hit the like button on stuff that you especially enjoy. And if you like everything, hey, hit the like button on everything. I appreciate it all, folks. And if we can get to 1,000 subscribers, me and Candace are going to do some really cool cosplay, probably on a upcoming Friday Foolish. I know the Friday Foolish episodes have been kind of sporadic, guys and gals, but me and Candace have both been busy, so we're trying to work out a time whenever that we can both do it. You know, when work doesn't conflict or anything like that. All right, but the really cool cosplay that we're going to do, if I can get to 1,000 subscribers, Tom, you say I should have a lot more views. Well, you know, it is what it is, Tom. I mean, I wish that I could say I did, but I have my theories on things, but I'm not going to bring it up here because, you know, I don't want any more negativity or anything on yeah, Tom, collabs, you have mentioned that, and I'm not against collaborations like I've said in the past. However, I guess I'm weird. I only like collabing with people I know, and some of these people that have been mentioned that I should collab with, I don't know anything about them. I went on their channel, but I still can't get a feel for them. And the thing is, I've been burned before by people that I didn't know that said, hey, you want to do a stream together. And they systematically tried to take over my channel. Now, I'm not saying that all these people would do that, but it became a kind of behind the scenes stalkerish kind of thing, and it made me uneasy. And again, I'm not saying all of these people would be like that. It's just sometimes when you get burned by things, it makes you a little wary. But that collabs are a very good idea, and I am thinking about, you know, maybe I noticed that, I don't know how familiar you guys and gals are with Scott on Tape, but I watch a lot of his stuff, and he likes to do collabs. And so I thought about, you know, contacting Scott and seeing if he maybe wanted to do a stream with me sometime. So y'all might want to be on the lookout for that. Yeah, Tom, it is very difficult to know people online. Yes. And also, another way that you can support me in the channel and get somebody else in on supporting me in the channel is by sharing with friends and family members that you think might enjoy the content that I'm putting out. That costs you nothing, that costs them nothing. And it helps me get up into the algorithms of YouTube, whatever that is. I don't think anybody's actually ever figured that out yet, but it apparently is a thing. All right, so now that I've talked y'all's ears off for about 20 minutes, let's get to the goofs and the trivia from Friday the 13th from 1980. And, you know, a lot of these things are like video oriented. And every time I try to even do little clips, YouTube dings me. And by ding, I don't mean a copyright strike. I mean, they say, well, you can't monetize this unless you take this out. And I see other people doing it all the time that are monetized, but I don't know. I don't know how they get around it. I've been told if you say it's for commentary purposes, I've tried that. And they still say, I'm sorry, you can't monetize this. So I'm not going to complain about it. But a lot of these goofs and things like that are video shots. So what I would encourage you guys and gals to do, I love having y'all in here to talk back and forth with me as I'm doing this live. But what you can do, if you want to see these, you can actually watch the movie yourself and, have my audio going, if you want to have the audio low. And every time I say something about a goof and you're at that area, you can say, oh, let me see if I can find that goof. Yeah, I think they are too, Tom. People that are just trying to get started and trying to get a following and all that. That I do think they are too hard. Yeah, the very big channel, because I figure the very big channels are the ones that are making YouTube the most money. And it's all, guys and gals, I know it's all politics and it's all, this money, the almighty dollar. But I try not to dwell on it too much, and I just get on here and try to have a good time and have fun. I wish that I could show more visual stuff, but maybe someday, who knows? Maybe things will change. But let's go ahead and get to these goofs first off. So at the near the end of the movie, oh, and a little note, if you've not seen Friday the 13th, you may not want to listen to me tell all these goofs because some of them talk about the end of the movie. And if you haven't seen Friday the 13th from 1980 and you're planning on seeing it, you might want to wait until after you watch the film to actually listen to it. Just thought I'd give you a little warning. So at the climax or near the end of the movie, when Alice swings the machete at Mrs. Voorhees and it decapitates her, when the blade makes contact with Mrs. Voorhees' neck, her head flies off at an incorrect angle, as though the cut began on the opposite side. And I had never seen that, so I'm going to go back a little later and watch that because I'm kind of curious about that one. There's a revealing mistake. When Ned is pretending to drown, Brenda swims out to rescue him. You can see that she and Ned stay underwater for a few seconds until they're cued to emerge. And this is about 23 minutes into the film. There is visible crew and equipment when Annie jumps from Mrs. Voorhees' Jeep. A white elbow pad can clearly be seen on her right elbow about 20 minutes into the film. That's something else I want to, take a look at. There is an audio problem or an audio issue at the beginning of the movie where Claudette and the other counselors are all singing. When they get closer, when the camera moves in a little bit closer, you can see that Claudette is playing the guitar and then she stops, but the guitar playing and the singing still continues. And that's about 2 minutes and 10 seconds into the film. Now, I have seen this one, and probably a lot of you guys and gals have seen Friday the 13th. A lot have seen this too. There's a revealing mistake. You can see toothpicks visible after Alice cuts off Mrs. Voorhees' head. That's about an hour and 28 minutes in the film, very near the end of the film. There's a continuity mistake. After Brenda hears a noise, she puts her book down next to the candle and she walks to the door. When she gets to the door, the book is now by the opposite side of the candle. That's about 52 minutes in. There's visible crew and or equipment when Mrs. Voorhees throws Alice onto a table. You can see a mattress under it catching her fall at about an hour and 18 minutes in. When Alice finds Bill dead and hung up on the door, you can see Bill blink his eye. That's about an hour and 8 minutes in. I've seen that one more than once. It just, his eye kind of twitches. And the reason why I had heard that his eye twitched is because some of the special makeup effects stuff that they had, like maybe the fake blood or something, was burning his eye, and he couldn't help but have his eye twitch. When Steve Christie is leaving the diner, it shows the outside of the diner, and it's supposed to be raining. It's very obvious that the rain is just some kind of, sprinkler or hose going back and forth. That's pretty obvious. I've noticed that one too. After Brenda is thrown through the window, between an hour and 11 minutes and an hour and 20 minutes into the film, when she is thrown through the window, she is facing to her right. Later, when Alice goes back to the kitchen, she is facing to her left. The glass and wood around her changes too. When the kids are on the beach, Brenda shows up and she says, "Hey, you guys, ready to get back to work?" And she's placing her foot on a red towel. When that shot cuts and it cuts back, the towel has changed position, and that's 23 minutes in. Tom, you say recently watched a movie. Someone in the background got off a bus, and in the next frame, he does the same thing. Yeah, exactly. I've seen that happen in a lot of movies too. Usually like low budget stuff, but some bigger budget stuff. So in the scene at the diner, after they show the kids playing strip Monopoly, I should say, there's a shot of Sandy, the waitress behind the counter, and some customers walking out of the diner. Look behind the last woman walking out, and you can see a crew member reflected in the window. It's about 46 minutes in. When the kid is playing classic guitar, the movement on the guitar's neck doesn't match the music. He somehow managed to play high tones on low frets. So that's somebody evidently with some musical knowledge. That's about 36 minutes in. I think by kid they mean Bill, when Bill's playing the guitar. Because that's too much later in the film for it to be the early part where they were playing guitar. When Annie talks to the dog near the beginning of the film, the dog's position changes between shots. This is about 7 minutes into the film. In the scene when Alice decapitates Mrs. Voorhees, and Mrs. Voorhees raises her hands and grabs at the air, if you look carefully, the hands have hair on the back. And the reason why that is because that was not Betsy Palmer in that scene. That was Tom Savini's assistant, Tasso, his assistant and his friend, playing Mrs. Voorhees. And if you see behind the scenes photos, you can see Tasso kind of bent over and kind of laughing, and he has the fake head, I guess with the toothpicks on it. So that was not Betsy Palmer, hence the hairy hands, because that was Tasso and not Betsy Palmer. When Pamela Voorhees pulls over to pick up Annie, we can see a man's arm reflected in the front windshield, sitting in the passenger seat. Tom, you say a big mistake in the first Jekyll and Hyde 1931 in the mirror. The whole crew was reflected in the mirror. It stayed in the movie. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go back and watch that. I love finding things like that. It's just fun for me. So after Alice bangs at the lock with the end of the gun, close to the end of the film, The position of the lock and its chains differs throughout the following consecutive shots at about an hour and 17 minutes in. When Jack and Marcy and Ned first get to the camp, you see Steve, the camp owner, chopping at a tree stump in order to remove it. And then he gets help from the others to help him push it out of the ground. But there are no chop marks on it, and he was just, really chopping at it. That's about 13 minutes into the film. At the lake, when they pull the floating object, or that dock, I guess, by the pier, the girl on the right side is about 10 feet ahead of the object. When it cuts, she's behind it, and that's about 21 minutes in. When Alice runs into the barn to hide from Mrs. Voorhees, as she slides the door open, a plank of wood falls over to the right of the door. In another shot of the barn, it is upright again. That's about an hour and 17 minutes in. After they've killed the snake, Alice says, "Is it dead?" And as the camera pans up, you can see the boom mic's shadow visibly moving across the wall, directly over Ned's head and the red box. That's about 26 minutes in. When Jack is stabbed through the neck, and I bet most people have noticed this, it is blatantly obvious that the neck is fake. You can clearly see the line between the real and the fake neck about 41 minutes in. And you can especially see that in the Blu-ray and the 4K versions of the film. When Enos is about to give Annie a lift, he says, "Okay, kid, let's move." We see the red clothing that Annie has on going over her shoulder, covering her bag strap or her purse strap. When the scene cuts and goes back, the strap is visible again. That's about 8 minutes into the film. Now, this is considered a deliberate mistake. When they're playing strip Monopoly, Alice purchases Baltic Avenue, and then Bill rolls the dice, and Alice exclaims that he rolled an 8, putting him on Baltic Avenue, because remember, he'd say, "Nobody ever lands on Baltic Avenue." And she says, "It's a pretty color, I'll buy it." However, if you look carefully at the dice before Brenda quickly scoops them up, you can see they show 2 5s. That's about 40 minutes into the film. Okay, Alice knocks the machete out of Mrs. Voorhees' hand at about an hour and 23 minutes into the film. But when Alice runs and picks it up, it's in an entirely different place. As Annie backs into the tree and then has her neck slit about 21 minutes in, her hair changes styles between the shots, and the amount of leaves in her hair changes. Now, I think I noticed the amount of leaves changing in her hair, but not that her hairstyle changed. So I'm going to have to go back and take a look at that too. When Ned is aiming the bow at, not necessarily at Brenda, but he's aiming at the target off screen. So when Ned is aiming the bow at the girl, the angle of the bow changes between the shots at 18 minutes in. Well, I mean, maybe he might have been aiming it at when he said, "What you see my trick shot?" And he does that. That's probably what they're talking about. While Annie is talking to the woman in the diner, they say a bar. I think it's a diner. The guy that washes the floors that appeared earlier standing on the other side of the counter now stands behind the counter by the woman. When Annie is leaving, the guy's back in his original spot he was in, and that's about 7, almost 8 minutes into the film. When Annie is hitchhiking and the red truck pulls over, or red Jeep rather, they said truck, but it's a red Jeep, she is standing in the shade. When it cuts, she is standing in the sun. This is about 18 minutes in. When Steve is talking to Alice and he's begging her to stay another way, oh, can't talk, another week, he puts his hand up onto the roof as he talks. In the next shot, his arm is down. That's 15 minutes into the film. There's an audio problem when Annie walks over to the dog near the beginning of the film and says, "Hi, girl, excuse me, hi, boy." Her lips don't move correctly to the line, "excuse me." So that might have been that they changed the line or something like that. That's about 7 minutes into the film. After Alice hits Mrs. Voorhees with a frying pan, Mrs. Voorhees' arm goes from being by her head to laying across her stomach. I do remember that one at about an hour and 22 minutes in. Just one shot before Mrs. Voorhees' decapitation, you can, for a split second, you may have to pause it and do it frame by frame, you can tell that Alice's hands are empty as she swings, and that she's not really holding the machete at about an hour and 24 minutes in. When Annie goes into the shop to ask where Camp Crystal Lake is, or the diner, as I like to call it, you can clearly see the reflection of a boom mic in the window above the head of the guy that is cleaning the floors. That's about 7 minutes, almost 8 minutes in. When Officer Dorff gets on his bike and he says, "You kids keep your noses clean, you understand? You'll be hearing from me if you don't." The reflection of the cameraman walking can be seen on the side of his bike at about 28 minutes in. When the generator gets shut off, they grab a couple of oil lanterns. However, once lit, you can see that it's just light bulbs and not, an actual flame. When Brenda's body is thrown through the window, the movement of her head when hitting the floor is not limp. She positions her head for the landing, then deliberately tilts it to the side as if dead. Also, on the second cut from Alice to Brenda, we can see Brenda's head moving ever so slightly at about an hour and 14 minutes into the film. After the girl, Annie, escapes the moving Jeep and stumbles through the woods, the killer catches up to her and slashes her neck. It's obvious she's wearing a prosthetic, as it does not match her skin tone. And again, on the Blu-ray versions and the 4K versions, you can notice that really, really well. When Alice opens the pantry door to find Crazy Ralph inside, she is looking directly at the camera as if looking at him. But a second later, she's looking to her left. Brenda is seen swimming really far out to rescue Ned, and Marcy rows her boat out to the middle of the lake. Yet when they rescue Ned, they are right beside the white dock at about 23 minutes in. In the diner that Annie enters, the tissue dispenser, or probably napkin dispenser is what they mean, and boxes move much further away from Enos between shots at about 8 minutes in. When Claudette and the counselors are singing in the beginning, the close-up of Claudette shows her legs crossed, but the far away shots show her legs apart. Okay. When Annie goes over to the dog and stops to talk to the dog, in the first shot, the dog is in the sun. Yet in the next shot, it is completely shaded, about 6 minutes, almost 7 minutes in. The trees and the scenery around and behind the truck as we first see Ned, Bill, and Marcy, and that's not Bill, that's Jack. They mean Ned, Jack, and Marcy. Changes between close-ups and wide shots, 12 minutes in. When Alice runs to the beach, there is only one canoe sitting there, but when she finally gets in the canoe and she pushes off, there are two. That's an hour and 23 minutes and an hour and 25 minutes between those two time periods. After the sheriff gets the call over the radio, he turns on his red lights. In the next shot, they are off again and then turned on once again, about an hour into the film. First, Bill and Alice are looking under the bed for the snake. In the next shot, Alice is not the one looking under the bed, but she is kneeling behind Marcy, who now is looking under the bed with Bill about 25 minutes in. When Ralph is leaving on his bike, he passes the same rock twice. That's something that happens a lot in movies. When they see the snake in the cabin, they all jump after it or under the bed and panic. But the next shot from under the bed, you see them calmly lifting the sheet on the bed to look under it about 25 minutes in. When Steve's car won't start or his Jeep won't start, you see a police car pull over. The sheriff turns on its red lights and Steve goes towards it and opens the door. And the next shot, you see him talking to the sheriff, but now the lights are off. It cuts again and the lights are on about 50 minutes into the film. When Annie gets into the diner and asks about Camp Crystal Lake, you can see the woman behind the counter standing, leaning in at the end of it. Then 2 cuts later, she turns around, suddenly standing by the cash register at about 7, almost 8 minutes in. Just before Annie jumps out of the Jeep is turning a bend. When the Jeep stops and it backs up, the road is straight. It's clearly new road. Also, the trees and leaves along the ditch have changed about 19, almost 20 minutes into the film. When Alice runs to the lake to Bill, she says, "Bill, Steve wants to know if you need more paint," while holding her arm to her hip. When it cuts, her arm is down about 16 minutes in. After Alice wakes up in the hospital at the end of the movie, watch the nurse after she gives Alice the injection. Her eyes at one point look directly into the camera in what is called breaking the fourth wall. This is about an hour and 27 minutes in, just before the movie ends. At the diner, when Sandy walks to the other end of the counter and she talks to Steve, the reflection of the boom mic is visible at the top of the window behind Steve at about 48 minutes in. When Ned fakes drowning, he is a decent distance from the dock, but as we said earlier, when he's rescued, all of a sudden he's much closer. When Jack and Marcy are sitting by the lake and they're talking and the storm starts up, at one point, lightning flashes yellow in their faces. True lightning does not flash yellow. And whoever put that one down is correct on that. A lot of times lightning is more of like a bluish, purplish color. Tom, you say, long ago I screened Altered States when it was still for free on YouTube. One scene had a big microphone and camera for about 30 seconds in the bathroom scene. Only copy shows a mistake. The other versions were perfect. It's sometimes hilarious to me. How many times have I talked about the boom mic being visible in Friday the 13th alone? When Alice wakes up, she has white socks on. When she walks to the kitchen, they are black. I'd never noticed that before. I'm going to have to check that out about an hour and 8 minutes in. When Annie is in the red Jeep, she says that she'll be cooking for 10 staff. When Alice goes to the beach, she tells Bill that everyone has arrived except for Annie. Even if Annie had made it, there would only be 8 of them. Steve Christie, Annie, Ned, Brenda, Jack, Marcy, Bill, and Alice. Too shy of what she told the truck driver. And I've got one that they didn't mention that maybe people don't even think of this as a goof. But when she's talking to the truck driver, she says, "Oh, I'll be cooking for 10 kids or 50 kids, I think, and 10 staff." Okay. But then when she's in the Jeep with the person that picks her up, she says, I guess I always wanted to work with children. I hate when people call them kids. It sounds like little goats. And just like a few scenes before she called them kids, So I think of it as a goof. Some of you guys and gals out there might not. Um, there would be, this is a factual error, there would be no slide latch on the inside of the pantry that Alice hides in before hitting Mrs. Voorhees with the frying pan. It would be on the outside. And Crazy Ralph comes out of the pantry and Alice screams. Marcy and Ned come running into the kitchen. Ned is eating a hamburger that hasn't been cooked until the next scene. And I noticed that one a while back, as many of y'all might have as well. So let's get to the trivia now. So, in the scene where Alice finds Bill's body hanging on the back of the door to the generator room, the producers purposely did not tell Adrienne King what they were going to do to the body, nor did they let her see the body beforehand. When she saw the body during filming, it was for the first time. The scream she produced was genuine, as it scared her badly. Needless to say, that entire scene was shot on one take. According to producer and director Sean Cunningham, Shelley Winters was the original choice for Mrs. Voorhees. He wanted a known actress whose career was winding down, so the fee would be low, which I guess that's smart to do on a low budget movie. But Shelley Winters wasn't interested. Estelle Parsons actually negotiated to be in the film, but ultimately backed out. Louise Lasser and Dorothy Malone were also considered before they finally wound up with Betsy Palmer, who famously agreed to the role because she needed money for a new car. And she was never originally considered for the role. Adjusted for inflation, the original Friday the 13th is still the most successful installment in the series, grossing over $39 million. The whole entire series has grossed in excess of $350 million. The budget for the movie was $500,000. The music in this film and all other Jason movies where it sounds like and fades is actually supposed to be Jason saying to his mother, "Kill mom," or "Kill mommy," or however you want to say it. Someone said maybe this isn't really trivia, but something interesting nonetheless. When the murders start happening at the camp, and I found this interesting, I didn't notice this. Every time a death is shown, the weapon used is something that was previously seen being used by one of the victims. Bill and Jack are killed by arrows, which were shown being used by Ned. Marcy is killed with an axe, which is something Steve was using earlier on. Stump. Alice kills Mrs. Voorhees with a machete, which Bill used to cut some bush and kill a snake. We never saw the weapon used to kill Steve, while Ned and Brenda's deaths were off screen. When Brenda's lifeless body suddenly crashes through the window before a horrified Alice, it's not Laurie Bertram at all. It's none other than Tom Savini, who is also an accomplished stuntman, yes he is, having donned a nightgown and a wig to emulate Laurie Bertram for the stunt. And if you pause it and go frame by frame, you can literally tell it's Tom Savini with a wig. There's also behind the scenes shots of him with this dark wig and a nightgown on. It's kind of hilarious. One critic, I think it was Roger Ebert, was so angry that Betsy Palmer dared to take this role in a slasher movie, which had angered many of her fans. To me, that's not being a very good fan, though. If you can't support somebody just because they do, a slasher film one time, that he published her address in his magazine and encouraged people to write to her and protest her. But what I did not know that he published the wrong address, which I find absolutely hilarious. You know, Roger Ebert, God rest his soul, I'm not happy the man is gone. But when him and Gene Siskel were doing that show, some of that stuff they came up with, in my opinion, was preposterous. And both of those guys are gone now, and I don't hold ill will towards anybody, even if I do think that their proclamations sometimes are ridiculous. It was reportedly makeup effects artist Tom Savini's idea to have Jason leap out of the lake at the end of the film, but I think a lot of people have tried to claim credit for it. For the final scare. He saw the movie Carrie shortly before filming and loved the final scare of that film and suggested this movie should end on a similar note with Jason attacking Alice. Okay, we're winding this up here, folks. While most stayed in nearby hotels, several crew members, including makeup effects artist Tom Savini, actually stayed on the campgrounds and slept in the cabins during the shoot. Tom, you say Roger Ebert hated Blue Velvet. I hadn't heard that he hated Blue Velvet, but he apparently he hated a fair amount of movies. Sadistic. Well, I guess you could look at it that way, but I think it's a fantastic film. I think David Lynch did a fantastic job with it. The creators have, to an extent, admitted this movie was more or less made as a knockoff of John Carpenter's classic slasher film Halloween. But if we hadn't had other things like Psycho and Black Christmas, we probably wouldn't have had a Halloween, and then we wouldn't have had a Friday the 13th and all those other movies that we love now. The film's original title was A Long Night at Camp Blood. Director Sean Cunningham then suggested Friday the 13th because it sounded more dramatic. The script was then reworked slightly to justify the title change. Reportedly, they had to pay off the producers of the 1979 film The Orphan to use the title, as it was released as Friday the 13th, The Orphan in some territories. When Betsy Palmer first read the script, her reaction was, "What a piece of shit." But she figured it wouldn't matter because likely few people would see the movie anyway, much less remember it years later. Of course, the movie was a big hit and spawned a decades-long franchise. And while she never said publicly whether she changed her mind about the film, she did genuinely appreciate everyone who did enjoy it and happily made public appearances to meet with the movie's fans. And Steve got to meet her years ago, and he said she was a very nice lady. In order to attract investors, the producers bought an ad in the industry publication Variety that simply displayed the title along with the text, "The Scariest Movie Ever Made." They were bluffing, of course, as they didn't have a script or even fully decide on the story concept at that time. The music played while Alice is floating in the canoe, and over the end credits is the same melody as the country song that can be heard over the radio in the two diner scenes, "Sail Away, Tiny Sparrow." It's just much slower. All right, gang. I have finished up all the goofs and trivia that I could dig up on Friday the 13th. Tom, you said, wasn't Black Christmas the very first, the one that started it? A lot of people consider Black Christmas the first, but it may be blasphemous to some, Tom, but I consider Psycho a slasher film, a very well-made slasher film. But I think if there hadn't been a Psycho in 1960, I don't think there would have been a Black Christmas. Then there wouldn't have been a Halloween. Then there wouldn't have been a Friday 13th and all these ones to come. But that's only my opinion. And, other people are free to have their own opinion on that. or anything for that matter. But I've been on here for almost an hour. So I guess it's time for me to say good night to you guys and gals. I want to thank Tom and Gory Tiger for being in the chat and keeping me company, especially Tom. He was talking back and forth with me pretty much for the duration, and I sincerely appreciate that. It gets awful lonely in here when I don't have anybody to talk to. But the good thing is that a lot of these things that I'm doing, although I may not have a lot of viewers when I do it live, I'm having more viewers after it's been published on YouTube. So I want to thank Tom and Gory Tiger for being in the chat tonight. I want to thank those of you that were able to come in here for a few minutes. I saw the numbers go up and down to see what good old Dana was talking about tonight. And I also want to thank those of you that will watch this on the replay, because you guys and gals are all important no matter how or when you watch it. You're welcome, Tom. It's always a pleasure having you in here. I hadn't seen you for a while, so it was extra good to see you in here again. And so I guess that is it for me. So as always, I'm off like a dirty shirt. This shirt ain't dirty, but I'm off like one. And I want to remind everybody, as I always do before I get off of here for the night, to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday night, folks. You're from Brussels? Oh, I did not know that, Tom. If you've told me that before and I forgot, I'm sorry about that, but that's interesting. So I urge you to get out there, blast some Aussie, folks, and try your best to live the Aussie way. And what do I mean by that? Don't stay stuck in the past, folks. Stay in the present, move forward into the future, and never, ever give up on your dreams. I love each and every one of you guys and gals out there, and I'll see everybody next time.